Hello and welcome to episode 1096 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, September 9th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined as always by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing well. We're both kind of waking up. It's pretty early, obviously super early for you. You're on the West Coast. So, we're just trying to get the day going. Football has started. Those people are already nauseating. Baseball's in the home stretch. My team is melting in the main event. That's also nauseating.
Oh, no.
But all in all, can't complain too much. How about you? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I don't have to worry about my team's melting because they melted at the beginning of the summer.
Obviously that's not what you want, but there is a certain calmness to it.
Yeah, I don't have to spend all day looking at the standings or looking at the live scoring now. It's and I had my sweat in the Tout DFS, which I choked that away. Congrats to my good friend Shelly V for pulling out a W and becoming the first woman ever to win a Tout League. So I'm happy and proud of her. It was she just dominated the finals, just absolutely dominated. But it's just a bummer for me. It's been a bummer of a year for me, but I'll be fine financially because of my DFS winnings this year. But I wanted to bring home some titles, and I had an outside chance of maybe if my team gets really hot in a couple leagues where I could bring some down. So I'm still plugging away. But
at this point, the schedule's working against any of us chasing.
Yeah,
because time's just going to become an issue. The season ends a little bit later than you might remember. It is into October for folks that don't remember. So it's about a month. It's just shy of a month. October 5th is the last day there. So there's still time, especially if your leagues are compact or your standings are compact the way a lot of leagues are. But again, clock's ticking, and you really can't have the off nights, which I've been having recently. I can't buy a dub. And that's where I can make so much money or so much hay. Yeah, I've got 68 with 67, 66, and 264s behind me, by the way, but 270s, a 72, 73 in front of me, and they just keep pulling away. And I'm not going to go over all of it, but the points are there. It's just a matter of if the team's going to step up and do anything. And I just don't know if they're going to. But today we're talking Rebuy Pitchers. We talked Rebuy Hitters. Appreciate the kind words that we got on that, a few different tweets and messages. So I figure we might as well do it with pitchers because a lot of times those are some of the best rebuy avenues because their prices really tank. Some of those hitters we talked about probably won't even have major discounts. They'll have discounts relative to where they went last year. But some of these pitchers are going to fall off the board. I try not to do too many just injury ones. I tried to get guys that have pitched this year, because a lot of times that is the answer with a pitcher bust is, hey, they got hurt. But let's focus on some guys who pitched a good bit and figure out if we're rebuying. Again, we run the gamut here from guys who are going in the top 15 of pitchers all the way down into the several hundreds with somebody like Mitch Keller, who had some hype this year, showed a little bit of it. Do we want to rebuy next year? But let's start with Trevor Rogers, a guy who is trying to make a last-ditch effort to repair his value. I would say at this point, as a Trevor Rogers fan, cool it with all that. You were terrible for me this year. Don't go turn around and make your price expensive for me next year, because I want to buy back in. But if he reels off a 2 ERA in these last 5-6 starts, I won't say the discount's gone because, again, he went super high last year, but it will evaporate. It will dry up a good bit if he pops off here. And his first 2 starts back, he looks great with just 1 walk and 13 strikeouts. So Trevor Rogers, terrible experience this year. You're going to buy back next year. Let's say the rest of the starts are fine, where he's just 5-6 innings, 2 to 4 runs, and it's just fine. It's not off the charts. Will that be enough to get you back in here with, say, 5-6 quality, not necessarily quality 6 innings, 3 runs, but useful starts down the stretch?
I think a lot of it'll depend on how he finishes, but what the discount is.
Sure.
Are we talking a 3 or 4 round discount? Because that's not going to be enough for me. We're talking about a guy who still, while he pitches in Miami, which is a great place to pitch, still has to pitch in that division for a team that is probably not going to be super competitive, comparatively speaking, to the other teams or to 3 other teams in that division.
Mhm.
So the chances for wins are going to be lesser than it would be on another team. So
He was
I don't know.
seventh. Trevor Rogers was 7th round last year. Let me throw him into the 12th round. Or not 12th. That's 5 rounds. I don't think
Well,
you
I
go that
mean,
cheap.
in the mains, he was going 4th, 5th round. Like, so, like,
No,
we're talking.
that was his main 92.
Oh, well. Oh, I just took
Which
him too high then.
I thought, well, 55 to 164. That's a pretty wide split.
Yeah.
Scott took him in the 5th at the very beginning, like right on that turn there. So literally the first pick of the 5th because he was at the 1. So yeah, I honestly, you're right. I thought it was higher too, but 92.7 is the main event. Wait. No. That's every draft at NFBC last year.
Oh,
I'm an
okay.
idiot. Hang on. You are closer. 73
Okay.
was his pick. That's 5th round. Now, 9th round. What about 9th round for Trevor
I think
Rogers?
it's got to be double digit at least. It's
So
just,
150 or later, or else you're not doing it.
and it also depends, like, you know, I mean, numbers wise, he's been fine these last 2 starts, right? A really good start and then a pretty good start, but not great. The first start, the changeup was working really well for him. The second start, the changeup was not working well, and it's all about
that's
the
what we're looking
changeup, right?
at. Yep.
So it's really going to depend on what he looks like down the stretch, what that in turn forces his ADP to be.
See,
but
that's going to decide it. You're dead on, because if he pops off, he's going to go inside that top 150 Trevor Rogers is. And I'm looking at these picks right now, and I think you're right that he has to go later than that, because the people that went around 150 last year, the starters, Tariq Skubal, who got hurt but was pitching brilliantly, Patrick Sandoval, Lance Lynn, who we knew was going to have a little bit of the injury time, but other than that, people were really interested. In fact, his ADP is skewed by the fact that I think he got hurt because he went 343 in one of the mains. So there was a changeover in the main where he went 46 to 343. So his ADP totally changed. But Luis Castillo went 160, Luis Severino. So I think Rogers, as it stands right now, would go later than that. But it goes back to, if these last 4 starts are awesome, I think he is more in this range or a little bit higher. In which case, you're saying you might put a little bit of a pause on it if it's a 8th, 9th round pick?
I think so. I mean, obviously, if he comes out and just is fantastic down the stretch.
Yeah, if Trevor Rogers shoves, he has 2 quality starts so far, 13 Ks, 1 walk in 12 innings. And again, probably about 4 more starts. If they're all 6 innings with 3 or fewer runs, if they're all quality starts, so it's 6 quality starts with, you know,
and the
50 strikeouts and the
changeup's playing well. And then, I may be able to jump back into like the 6th, 7th rounds. But I'm going to try to caution myself against it, because now we've seen what the downside is, and the downside is devastating.
It was rough. 5.51 ERA, 152 WHIP so far on the season for Trevor Rogers, even with the 2 good starts. One thing working in our favor is that even with if he does put up 3-4 more good starts, it might not make enough of a dent in the bottom line to really appeal to those who don't look deeper. Now, a lot of people will. Obviously, we're big in the NFBC world, and we know, you're not going to get a bunch of fish in leagues like that. But I do think that, obviously that's not the only format that exists. Other leagues, if the bottom line is still like 4.80 ERA, that'll still keep people away. Not everyone will necessarily key in on those final 6 starts. It'll be written about in a lot of articles, though. It'll say like, hey, he had this ERA, but he finished strong.
Sleeper. I think he'll be a guy that he's going to have a wide discrepancy of ADP depending on what site you play on. So like you're playing
Trevor Rogers,
ESPN, by the way. Rogers will have a much lower ADP, even if he finishes really strong. He'll be the guy that everybody's talking about in articles. Like, you have to get him. He's 245 in ESPN.
I will freely be on that train, by the way. If he falls off, I will get Trevor Rogers. Anything that starts with a 2 as far as ADP, I will be 360 slam dunking that all day. Let's talk Freddy Peralta. He is definitely one of the guys that the injury piece came up because, he started off slow, but really figured himself out pretty quickly. I know there was early panic through like the first 2 starts. It was 2 starts that people were like, oh my God. But they carried for a little while. So he actually took a 5.09 ERA into May. found himself back on track, but then the injury cropped up, cost him some time. From May 22nd to August 3rd, he was out, returned, looks good again, nicked up again, though. So I think one of the biggest issues with Freddy Peralta this whole time that he's been a thing has been the concern about whether or not he can hold up. He is 5'11", listed 5'11", which means he's nowhere near 5'11", because if he was truly 5'11", he'd be listed 6 feet. That is a stone cold fact. Sorry, y'all. Love my short kings out there, not shaming, just being honest about the world here. So he's probably closer to like 5'8". And the only reason that that's an issue is like if you're 5'8", 190, the rigors of 30 starts a year are a question. And we've seen it with other guys who are a bit more slight. And, even somebody like Pedro, who's an all-time god, his body size kind of cost him innings at times. And so we're looking at it here with Freddy Peralta. Does that enter your mind next year in terms of a rebuy of like, can I get a full season? We got 144 last year. That's his fullest season. And we were doing backflips for it because it was a 281 ERA, 0.97 whip. So we know how great it can be. But even his fullest season is still only 144 innings. How are you valuing Freddy Peralta next year now that we have another short season and we don't really know how trustworthy he can be volume-wise?
Yeah, I mean, I need to see him finish the year on the mound. And, for those who don't know, left the game last night, shoulder fatigue. He's going the IL today, which means he's missing like half of the remaining season. So
at least,
he said in a post-game interview that he will pitch again this year. I need to see that before I'm even coming anywhere close to rebuying. And it'd have to get a huge discount because
I think there will be, though, because he went super high. Freddy Peralta, 41, 16th pitcher off the board. That's 1, 2, 3. There's 3 relievers, so 13th SP.
Yeah, I mean, he was good when he was on the mound. So, I mean, I don't have a question about the talent. I do have a question about the body. And like you mentioned, he's a smaller guy, slight frame, doesn't have the most natural and clean mechanics.
No.
And so like you just worry about guys like that, like we worried about Tim Lincecum and
that's who I was trying to think of. Yeah, Lincecum, and look at how brightly he burned, and then he was gone, dude. Like he fell off and was gone.
So yeah, I think it would depending. I mean, if you get a huge discount, if we're talking like he's not a top 10 round pick next year, I'd become interested. But I still think like the way he actually pitched when he was on the mound, his service stats are going to kind of hurt that potential. Like,
unlike Trevor Rogers, it's the opposite effect where Peralta's numbers are still going to look flashy and people are going to say, I can buy back in. This dude's a stud.
Plus, we've gotten 3 years of good production from him, whereas we only had 1 good year of good production from Rogers. So, I mean, I think I'll take my L on Peralta because I didn't think he was ever going to be this good. And I've been wrong for a while now, but that being said, I'm probably not gonna buy this.
I'm very unlikely to as well, unless Freddy Peralta is super cheap. I'm not sure he gets even to the 150 you're talking about. Again, I mentioned names like Skubal, Sandoval, Lynn, Castillo. I mean, it might be right around there. Severino was there, obviously coming off TJ, so maybe that is a nice little pocket for guys. Michael Kopech was 137. Maybe he's somebody who has a lot of questions. Actually, we're going to talk about him as well on a rebuy. So maybe it is in that range. I could start to get interested, but man, I feel like I need to go after 150 with Peralta before I'm comfortable, and I just don't think he's going to get there. I think there'll be too much hype for Freddy Peralta, and I get it, but I just don't think it's for me. Let's talk about those White Sox. We have 2 of them, including Kopech. The other one, of course, you can probably guess, is Lucas Giolito. Let's start with Giolito because he was the higher of the 2. He was seen as a super viable ace. Totally understood that. He was the 7th SP off the board at pick 24 on average. So very much in the 2nd, 3rd round area there for Lucas Giolito. And we've talked about him multiple times this year because, of course, he's unfortunately been one of the worst pitchers going, especially as far as high end. And the issue has been everything. And not everything everywhere all at once. It's something every start is what it is. And that's kind of the infuriating thing. You watch him start to start. The thing that bothered him 2 starts ago might not be the problem today. Command, certain pitches, fastballs here, breaking balls there. it's been a grab bag of issues. The bottom line has been a 5.21 ERA, a 150 WHIP, but still a 17% strikeout minus walk and a 377 Sierra. So what do you make of Giolito, Justin? And will you buy back at the discount? Again, his discount's likely to be to like pick 90 or 100 as opposed to 150 or later because he was going in the top 25. So I don't think Giolito's going to be dirt cheap. I don't think he gets out of the top 100 necessarily. So with that as a framework, what do you think about Giolito, and would you buy at that price?
I don't know.
I loved him, right?
I did. Yeah, he was my second round pick in the main. I was stoked to get him in the second, or no, maybe he was my first round pick in one of my mains. I paired him with Ozzy Albies and then took Trevor Rogers in the fifth.
That would have been your second main.
Yeah, it'd be my second main. Yeah, that one didn't work out real well. I don't know what to make of him. The bottom line is he has been way too hittable. He just when he leaves things in the zone, and he's not necessarily leaving things in the zone like an absurd amount, he just has no command on where it's going in the zone, and he's just leaving it up. And guys aren't necessarily taking him yard all the time, but they're just putting it into play in a way that we haven't seen from Giolito before. I mean, we've seen the zone contact rate go up over league average when he's been a guy like in the mid 70s in terms of zone contact, 10% below kind of league average. This year he's above league average. He's just been hittable.
Yeah, and I mean 10.2 hits per nine, I think. Yeah, 10.2. Great.
And what this is forced him to do is not be in the zone, which leads to more walks. So then when he is in the zone, he's giving up multi run homers as opposed to solo shots. So,
and yeah, that's been a big issue. The 354 BABIP paired with a 1.6 homer 9 for Giolito. 9% walk rate is up from last year. So it's all spiraling to get, it all starts to snowball together to create all these problems start. And the tough part is, how do you sit him? Because he'll drop 3 great starts in a row and then the bomb will erase all of them, but the bomb will be against Detroit.
Kansas City was the most recent one.
Exactly. It'll be Detroit or KC as opposed to the New York or Houston that you're afraid of. And it's just been so tough with Giolito. Were you able to get him this year? Because again, I know you liked him. Was he somebody that you were able to land outside of that main?
I think just in that main. And it was one
Have
of those.
You been starting him all year then? Have you stuck with him?
Yes, I have.
I mean, I feel like you have to.
I
mean, you don't have to, but I would be too.
And at this point, it's like, my ratios are already shot, so I might as well just keep rolling him out there and hope for the best. When you pair him with Trevor Rogers, and I can't remember who the other starter was that crushed me as well.
That combo about does it. Like,
yeah.
And I'm sure when you told me you got that trio, Albies, Giolito, Rogers, I was probably
and it was
you
mixed
up because I love that 3.
And Rossi Iglesias and Manuel Clase. So I got 2 premier closers and the 2 pitchers, a stud hitter to start. And
I absolutely gassed you on that. I'm sure of it. Where I was like, "Oh, bro, you killed those first 5," and look what happens.
And the worst part about it is like that was one of the leagues where like I had really good late picks, like Nestor Cortez in the 18th.
That's the worst when you waste your gems because the foundation wasn't there, and you're like, "Dang, these guys are only making up for my losers in the front."
4 of my 5 first picks were busts.
Nestor was just canceling T-Raj. It's like it wasn't in addition to your stud. Well, let's talk Kopech then, because he's a much different story. On every level, really, because he's never had the high level of success that Giolito's had. It's been mostly hype. And the funny thing is, he's on this list with a bunch of guys that got like 5 ERAs and stuff, and yet his ERA is 3.78 with a 1.22 WHIP. Might even give some people some pause of like, well, why is he even on this list? But Kopech has been maddening to have this year. I have him in our main, and my God, there's another guy that you're constantly starting, even though you don't feel confident about it, because you never know that he can get busted by Detroit or KC and then do well against a good team. He is another one of those guys that's like, matchup doesn't matter. If he's off, anyone can get him. If he's on, no one can get him. 21% K, 12% walk rate. That's the biggest issue. But the 21% strikeout rate is awful. That's a huge drop off for Kopech. He's had a tumultuous season within these 114 innings this year, where he was riding so high early on. You might remember that he had a 1.92 ERA through mid-June, and since then has a 94 ERA, I think. Oh no, 5.31, close. But it's been bad, and I got to be honest, I try not to get too soured on one season. I think this has soured me off of Kopech because this is not new, and just the inconsistency, the never knowing when he's going to pitch or how he's going to pitch. I think I'm out almost regardless of the discount. But what say you about Michael Kopech and a rebuy for next year?
Man, so 24 starts this year. He has one start where he walked no batters, and only 4 starts where he walked only one batter. And like
that'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that again gives up like around league average, just a little bit above league average zone contact. So like when you're leaving 2 guys on base and then someone pops a homer on you, that's devastating. Like his stuff is undeniable, but at the same time, like you would think he'd be getting a bigger strikeout rate or a bigger swing and strike rate.
That's the
from a guy like Kopech. Like we're not like he was supposed to be baby Thor, right? Like you know, and Kopech
he looks like present day Thor though. Yeah, like with the mediocre strikeout. Well, you know, it's like
that's mean, but he's definitely close.
Look at the rates.
He's definitely closer to present day Thor than previous Thor. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't in on Kopech largely because I didn't know what the innings were going to look like. But yeah, I think now you have innings concerns because he's been injured a few times this year too. Mixed with that just obscene walk rate that could really come back to bite him. Unless we hear of some sort of huge change, I'm probably not going to pay the price because the good bottom line is going to get people just like Freddy Peralta. People are going to want to buy in on Kopech and push him up boards in the way he was pushed up this draft season because they're like, hey, all he's got to do is stay on the mound. I don't know.
And I get it. Like, I understand because I say stuff like that a lot too. Like, if all I need is the health piece, but I'm not sure that that's all we need. I think the skill piece isn't necessarily there for Kopech. I think we need to see a lot better command and health. And I'm sure they're interrelated. They're related, but I'm fading him. I'm not going to be on the Kopech train this year.
I know that especially for Giolito, I think more than Kopech, like some of the issues have been defense related. And, they can't really control that as much. That being said, is the defense going to get better in Chicago? Like, I don't know.
Who knows what that? Yeah, their offseason, I don't know. I think it could, but it's a fair question to say, do we even know what's going to happen? Yeah. Are they going to try to improve it? What are they going to do coming off of? Well, and they might even salvage what looked like it was going to be a disappointing season because now they're right back in the mix.
Tony La Russa hasn't been there, and they've been hot.
That's not a coincidence as far as I'm concerned.
They're going to do just enough to make the playoffs, and
then he'll get back and ruin it.
Yeah, well, or they'll let him stay on another year as the manager, and they'll just have to go through this all again.
Yeah, I could totally see that with the White Sox. So Kopech and Giolito, 2 different guys in terms of I think their discounts are going to be vastly different, but they're also doing vastly different things. More likely to buy in on Giolito. Kopech price, if it really tanks bottoms out, sure, but I just don't see that as a realistic possibility unless he craps all over his current numbers and pushes like the ERA up over 4. I don't think he's going to do that because I'm not sure he's even going to pitch that much the rest of the season. They could definitely just be getting 2-3 innings at a time out of him. Who knows? So let's move on to José Berríos. This is obviously one of the bigger ones in that Giolito realm. He wasn't quite going as high, but he wasn't too far off. He's kind of more like with Rogers, where Berríos was going actually 2 pitcher slots ahead of him and literally 2 picks, 73 to 71. So the 30th pitcher, that includes relievers. I'm not going to do I'll tell you the relievers that are around him, Romano and Chapman. So you can guesstimate that's about 10, I think. So Berríos was probably around SP 2022 area. It started off horribly, Justin, with the 8 billion runs against Texas in the 3rd of an inning. And he's been trying to work that off since then and struggling to do so. And it's always a blow up, like a catastrophic one. That's been the issue this year. Would you believe that Berríos actually has 18 starts of 3 or fewer earned, which is great. Problem is he has 5 of 6 earned or more, 2 8s and 3 6s, and throw in 2 5s there as well. So you have 7 just monstrous starts for Berríos that are really eating up his numbers. 5.23 ERA, 139 WHIP, strikeouts fell off, home runs skyrocketed. He'll be 29 next year. What kind of discount you think we even get on Berríos, and will you be willing to buy it at a particular, at what level will you be willing to buy it, I should say, with José Berríos?
I mean, a lot of it is command, man. It's just 7 of his starts this year. He's given up multi-homer games. And you just can't do that, especially not in that division.
That's the biggest key.
Such really, really good competition. I think if the discount's cheap enough. I mean, I've always been a Berríos guy. I've always felt like there was another level, and I didn't think the level was down.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. And honestly, like, how encouraged were you last year when he went to Toronto and started to show it? Because I got to say, small sample and definitely some confirmation bias, because I also believed in that extra level. His ERA didn't go down. It actually went up, but the WHIP was perfectly solid. And the fact is, I was grading him on a curve. So the fact that he only added 0.10 to his ERA and 0.4 to his WHIP last year when Berríos went to Toronto, I was like, well, that's a higher degree of difficulty. So the fact that he's barely gotten worse in the AL East, I was encouraged by that. The strikeouts had gone up as well, and I thought he was going to do it again. I got lucky that people took him before me because he's a guy I would definitely.
Yeah,
I
did too. Like, he was the guy that I was like, oh man, if I get him as an SP3, I'm gonna be jumping for joy. And he was just never there.
Thankfully for us, yeah, we got lucky.
I stepped on different landmines. One we're gonna talk about here next. Oh
God, so did I in our main. I wish you'd taken him from me.
I appreciate you doing it, but
let me throw you a price on Berríos real quick before you get into that. Let's put him. So again, he was going 71. I think he can realistically get to like that 10. I know we've been putting all these guys in that same area.
I think he's going to go much lower than that. If he's only 10th round, then I'm probably not. I think we're looking at him.
You think people are going to dump him after one bad year?
He has been bad, but he has been consistently bad the entire season.
Like, I mean, he has. You're right. Okay, let's throw him.
If he, I say outside top 200, I'm in.
Okay, that's about where I was going to throw him. I was going to put him at pitcher 80, which was 190.
Yeah, and I think there is like a fine gamble, right?
He's again, that's pitcher 80. That includes RPs. I just want to be clear on that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think he's a fine gamble there, and Berríos is a guy that, like, he's still young. It's still a good team.
Yeah, he'll be 29 next year.
He has shown flashes of being himself at times, and the last 2 starts have been pretty decent. So, I think I'd be fine paying that price. If the discount is only 150, I don't know. He just doesn't have the upside that you want from that kind of pick, right? He doesn't have he's never been an SP1, and so
that's true.
Like if I'm gonna take a discount, I want the discount on the guy that I think legitimately could be an SP1.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Again, at 150, you're looking at that Skubal, Sandoval, Lynn, Castillo.
I want the Verlander discount that we got early in draft season, right? Like, hey, he may be nothing because of the injury, but he also may be the best pitcher in baseball for 150 innings. Like, that's, if I'm taking a discount on a guy who, Giolito is another really great example, right? Like, Giolito has been among the best pitchers in baseball.
Yes, he's been a fantasy ace for sure.
Berríos, like, his upside's probably a low-end SP2.
SP2 has always kind of been that cap, and that's where you and I were saying there has to be another level here. Well, there doesn't have to be. We thought there was, and turns out maybe there isn't. Nick calls him the great undulator because he's up and down. He kind of always finds his level. He never found the level this year because those 6 bomb outs, or those 5 bomb outs of 6+ earned were just so damaging that he just couldn't get back on track. And this is the season that we have with Berríos. I'm going to be interested to see the framing on him in the offseason, how people write about him and talk about him on pods, and if there develops an interest, because I feel like the fantasy community, at least within the pods and tweets that I read, not a huge fan of his to begin with. So this disaster season, I think, could push him down. So if he is going way out of the 200s there for José Berríos, and he's going more in like the Mike Clevenger range, the Jesus Luzardo range of this year, I could see myself getting back in on Berríos. But I don't know. I don't know if he'll fall all the way down there because of his name value. This guy will, though. This guy will be cheap. So you have a chance to buy back in next year at a discount and see if you can recoup some of your losses from Ian Anderson. I mentioned that I took him off your hands there in our main 5 ERA, 151 whip. I mean, we knew what the issues were coming in this year. I know I thought he was going to develop on that walk rate, be a bit better with the command. He has the stuff to miss bats. I trust Atlanta inherently. 24 years old. I thought there was lots to like with Ian Anderson. He's been a nightmare. The command and control have been the driving force behind the trouble. And, there's still development to be done. He'll be 25 next year. He's still in the minors, by the way. I don't know when he's coming back or if he's coming back. Might not even be a starter when he does this for this year at least. But what do you think about next year with Ian Anderson? By the way, he's not pitching well in the minors. 5.40 ERA, 162 whip because the same command issues. 4.2 walks, 10.4 hits. So Ian Anderson next year, the discount will be severe. I don't even think we have to speculate whether or not it'll be outside the top 200. It absolutely will. He was 165 this year, so he'll be like a 250 type pick or later. Will that be enough to entice you back onto the Ian Anderson train?
Get me outside the top 300 and they'll think about it. Like,
okay. I don't know if you're going to get that far. You might, though.
I think you might.
I think it's certainly possible because you look at guys, Cal Quantrill, Jack Flaherty was injury, of course, Mitch Keller, Corey Kluber, Eric Lauer. I don't see any reason why Ian Anderson shouldn't be amongst these type of names here. So, yeah, I could see late 200s, early 300s.
I mean, he had like one great 32 inning stint in the majors. I don't think that will keep him in the top 300.
No, he's pretty good last year, but I agree.
But there were some underlying red flags that I think, and he was the guy that I wasn't necessarily in on, but I didn't know what to do with. But he always dropped in a draft. He always just seemed like
because he wasn't very good.
Yeah, probably, and I should have stayed away from him. But he was one of those guys yeah, screw it, I'll take the dart throw right here. And I really wish that dart hadn't boomeranged back.
Yeah, it went right in my eye.
Yeah. So yeah, if he's going late enough, and it looks like he has a rotation spot, right? Who knows what's going to happen with Charlie Morton? I think Odorizzi's a free agent. So there's going to be there's going to be potential opportunity. The thing is, for me at least, it feels like Atlanta, while they're very good at developing pitching for the most part, if you burn them, they're done with you. Touki Toussaint, Oscar Yanoa, Ian Anderson has not come back. Bryce Wilson,
Kyle Muller,
Tucker
Davidson.
The only guy that is overcome that is Kyle Wright.
And because he didn't have that much time. He didn't fully burn them yet, and they're no, we're going to keep this one. But you're right. A lot of them kind of one and done type of, or not one, but very quickly moved on from. Tucker Davidson got traded out even. Yeah,
and there's another guy. I think he's on the Tigers. Who's the guy that you guys? He pitched a few innings this year. Now I'm blanking on his name.
Joey Wentz.
Yeah, Joey Wentz he
pitches tonight actually.
Yeah, Braves prospect at one point. So they're quick to be yeah, no, you suck. We're moving on.
So here's something to think about then. If we start to see things shape up to where there's not a clear spot for Anderson, that might be an indicator that they are not making a spot for him.
Yeah. Yeah. If they go out and they get another guy, especially if Morton decides he's going to resign.
Yeah. If they go Fried, Wright, Strider, let's say Morton sticks, and then they go get somebody else who's going to be clear starter. I don't know if there's a spot for him.
Yeah. Then you pretty much take him off your board. If they have 5 lined up, because they also have other guys in the minor leagues. So
yeah, they still have the aforementioned Kyle Muller.
Yeah,
Bryce
they still have guys. So I think a lot of it depends on what the Braves do in the offseason. So if you are a guy like me who
Mike Soroka, by the way.
Hello. Mike Soroka is going to be back. Yeah, so they may not even need one. He's already buried. So I'm probably going to stay away from him unless he's just dirt cheap. Draft and holds.
I was going to say, I think I'll hit some Ian Anderson and some draft and holds if he's in that 300 range and later, just to say, hey.
300 may not even be low enough, honestly. I mean, you're talking about.
I mean, he might not go that high. You're right. Like
Morton's got, I think, one more year on his deal. And all the other guys are penciled in. Soroka coming back if he's healthy. Like, where does he? I mean, obviously, anything can happen. Right?
Yeah, teams will use more than 5, but the simple fact is,
I'm not going to pay a top 300 price on a guy who isn't penciled into a 5 or 6 man rotation.
And that's where draft and hold comes in, because you draft all 50 at once. You're drafting your backups. That's where Ian Anderson fits right now. But everything else, I agree, it's super dicey.
Yeah.
Let's go to Boston. Talk about a guy that had a lot of excitement. Basically, we were thinking whatever the role is, it should be good and fantasy relevant for Tanner Houck. He did get 8 saves, 5 wins, 3.15 ERA, 1.18 WHIP. This is another one kind of akin to Kopech, where it's like the bottom line numbers are good, and he's done for the year. He's on the IL. I guess the question is, what are we doing next year with him coming off of a back surgery?
I don't know, man. This is a really difficult one, because Houck, as impressive as he is when he's on the mound, he's got to stay on the mound, and it's even more compounded by the fact that they won't just commit to a role. Like, just make him a starter or make him a reliever. Like,
he's actually going to wind up with fewer innings this year than he had last year.
Yeah. I think he's a late dart throw if you think he could get saves. If they don't bring in a closer, are you
even taking him in early DCs though, without knowledge of what Houck is up to? Because it could be a dead spot.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that's killed me in my DCs this year is just the amount of injuries and dead spots that I've got, because minor leaguers I thought were coming up never came up, or because injuries. And I just don't know that you want that kind of weight on the roster, even in 50-round draft. So
I agree.
I think I'm staying away from Houck, outside of if he looks really, really good in spring. And we're talking my March draft. So
yeah, we're light years from that though. So with all the fall and winter drafts that you and I are going to do, I'm not taking Houck either. I think it's too much of a risk. I don't see the upside right now. We haven't seen more than 69 innings in a season. And I'm sorry, folks, that's not nice though, because that's not enough innings. Let's move on to Aaron Ashby, another young arm that was a big time favorite this year. A lot of expectations for Ashby, some of which were observed at times, at least, where you could see, oh, hey, this is the upside that we paid for. But as the season wore on, it got to him, and just too many struggles there. It has ended with a 6 earned run outing in 5 innings against the Cubs, and now he's on the IL. Although they're suggesting that maybe he could come back. I don't know if he's going to for the regular season. There is a chance at the end here that he gets a start in before the playoffs, as long as they make it, of course. But the bottom line as it stands right now is a 4.58 ERA and a 1.43 WHIP in 96 in the third. You love the 116 strikeouts for Aaron Ashby, but the 43 walks and 14 homers are good for 4.0 BB9 and 1.3 Homer 9. Are you in on Aaron Ashby next year? Because I'm going to tell you right now that I don't think the discount will be all that severe. I think plenty of people will buy back in, especially if he finishes the season on the mound, whether it's in the playoffs or at the very tail end here of October. So what do you think with Aaron Ashby next year, the 25-year-old lefty?
I want to be on it so bad, but I just think everybody else can be in on it more. You see the talent on the mound, and the fact that the Brewers committed to him long-term tells me a lot about what they think of him and what they think the plan is going to be. And that they
5-year deal with 2 options. Sorry.
Yeah, that they think that Ashby's going to do like a Corbin Burns type plan, where start in the bullpen, toiled back and forth between bullpen and starting, and then all of a sudden was a stud.
Yeah, so found the right pitch and changed it. By the way, I'm going to say this: I think Aaron Ashby's ADP is going to go up. He was 252 last year.
Yeah,
even though there's been some sketchiness to his numbers and he's ending the season hurt, I think he goes up. And he's inside the top 200 or really close to 200 at the low end. So with that as the framework, let's put him where Ian Anderson was going this year, 155, 160 range. Would you take Ashby there? You got a stable front end of your rotation. Let's say you got one of the aces, you got a 2 that you really like. Your 3's fine. Would you make him your number 4?
I don't think I would. I think that's too high.
Okay.
Especially because one of the mistakes I made in the main event was not having that stable 4th, 5th, 6th starter. I took too many gambles, and I didn't have the guys, the horses at the end that could carry me.
Workhorse.
Yeah, that could carry me in kind of the doldrums of summer, right? And I had to rely on the Pavettas and the Madison Bumgarners, the guys who just torched my ratios and really crushed me. And so, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Picking a guy like Patrick Sandoval at 140 or wherever I got him in our draft was ended up being devastating, even though it was like a fun pick to make, right? And I got the Snipe Scott.
Because of his whip. I mean, his ERA has been excellent still, but he has a 135 whip and 127 innings.
127 innings kills you.
That's the real issue with Sandoval. Is the 127.
It's what we're looking at with a guy like Ashby is he's got 96 innings. That may be it for him. Even if he comes back and makes a few more appearances, we're talking just over 100 innings this year.
Exactly.
They can't be your 4-5 guy.
No, because you still need somebody that's going like 140 plus there. And he might go that next year, but that's kind of the cap then too. So it goes back to your other point about like where Sandoval's at, and he's had an issue.
I feel like he's 2 years away. Like I feel like next year isn't the year. I feel like 2024 is the year for Aaron Ashby.
I think that's absolutely fair. I'm eager to see where the price is though, because that is a guess, and I don't.
If he's outside the top 200,
then we start to talk. But I just don't think
I'll make the argument, but I agree. I think he's going to be a guy that people want to believe in next year.
Yep. And again, he does anything in the playoffs or something, playoff tax will go through the roof on Aaron Ashby. Let's talk another lefty, not as young, not as good this year either. Sean Manaea struggles, man. The struggle bus on him. I don't have Manaea anywhere, so sometimes I get jarred every time I kind of go back to his stats, and I'm like, dang, really? 5.27 ERA. Now this is recent, by the way. That's the interesting thing too. 5.27 ERA, 136 WHIP. Coming out of the break, he had a 4.11 ERA, which is still not amazing, but we play in deeper leagues, so 4.11 ERA, you're fine with that from someone who's eaten up some innings. His second half has been a nightmare. Sean Manaea has put up an 8.36 ERA in 8 starts. That includes getting blasted in Detroit. That includes having a pretty pedestrian start in Miami, 4 innings, 3 runs, getting blasted at KC, 6 earned in 4. There are 2 Dodgers starts in there that you should have reasonably avoided, at least the second one, the most recent outing, because if you're still starting him against the Dodgers, you deserve what you get. But it's been bad for Sean Manaea. He's had health issues in the past. He is, staying healthy, or at least pitching. I don't know if he's fully healthy, but it's been rough. Homers have been the biggest issue. What's up with Sean Manaea? He'll be 31 next year, and he'll be a free agent. So, I don't know what team he'll be on. Obviously, that'll drive a lot, but let's just say he goes to a neutral team. So we're not saying, well, if he goes to this pitching squad, it'd be great. If he goes to this hitting one, it'd be bad. Put him on a neutral team. What are you doing with Sean Manaea next year based off of this season that we've seen?
I mean, it's all about home runs. Like in the second half, he has given up 12 home runs.
He just gave up another one. I just saw it.
Yeah.
It's pitching a warm-up right now. He just gave up a homer.
2.87 homers per 9, like that in the second half right now.
1 homer free outing since July 1st.
Yeah, just unreal. I love Manaea as a talent. I hate Manaea as a fantasy
player.
Yeah, like when he is on, watching Manaea is just beautiful. Like he, and the mechanics are really nice in spite of the injuries and stuff like that. But he's just one of the most frustrating guys to roster. So
I agree.
I think a lot of it will depend on where he signs and what he signs for. Like if he signs with a really good team and a really good park, people are going to be like, it's Manaea time again. I'm probably going to avoid it. Like I just think it's too volatile of a profile. And while he's been healthy enough this year, he's at 138 innings. He's going to get probably 3 or 4 more starts down the stretch. I don't think I trust his health anyways long term, just because it's been so shaky in the past to begin with. So
absolutely.
Now you've got a huge homer issue. Like, we're not talking about a homer issue. We're talking about a huge homer issue.
26 this year. And 1.3 last year is not amazing. He kind of survived the ERA last year and might have had a better ERA than his 391 if he hadn't given up so many. Well, of course, he would have had a better ERA if he didn't give up so many homers. But that was an issue that kind of got overlooked because everything else was pretty good. And then this year it explodes for Manaea, and it's been trouble. I do think he'll go pretty cheap, though. He's 109 this past year. I do think he is somebody who'll get in that 250 range. His price will tank, I think, unless he does something in the playoffs. Again, playoff tax can change everything. Or, like you said, goes to the cushiest spot and everyone gets crazy from Manaea again. But otherwise, I think he's going super cheap.
I do too.
Like 240, 250 range or later, perhaps. So if you do like him, the price should be there. But I'm with you, Justin. I don't think I'm going to go for Sean Manaea too much next year. What about this next guy? Bailey Ober came into the year with some hype. I think he was pretty much living up to it. In fact, had cut the homers as well. Only 33 2/3, so we only have 7 stars to go off of. But he really cut his homers, which was the big issue last year. 4.01 ERA, 128 WHIP. Has a chance to finish the season on the field, especially if they make the playoffs. But he's working on a rehab right now. Supposed to come back here relatively soon if everything checks out. What do you think of Bailey Ober? What we saw in the 33 2/3 innings? Will he be somebody that you buy in on? And did you like him coming into this year?
I was very unsure of him in not Matt Ryan, football on the brain. Joe Ryan, because of their huge fly ball rates and potentially give up home runs. And I'm still very unsure on Ober. I think Joe Ryan is who he is at this point. Like, there's obviously room for him to improve, but I still think he's going to be a guy who struggles with the long ball at times. Ober showed something at the beginning of the season before getting injured. We were also dealing with a really deadened ball.
Yes, that's true. But it didn't really change that much.
Yeah, I just don't want to give him huge. He's still got a 26% ground ball rate.
Oh, you don't want to give him full credit on the homer per 9. I got you.
Yeah, I don't want to say
that's fair.
Look what he was doing. Now all he's got to do is finish the year on the mound. I want to see how he finishes the year on the mound. If he comes and finishes the year on the mound, gives me 2 starts where he doesn't give up a home run or only gives up 1 home run, I'm going to feel pretty good about Bailey Ober coming into next year. Yep. If he comes in and he serves up even just 1 3-homer game, I'm like, aha, I'm not falling for you, Mr. Ober.
The regression snuck in under the wire.
That being said, there still needs to be a pretty big discount because, well, not necessarily discount because he wasn't super expensive. I don't think.
Yeah, he was 208 this year.
Yeah,
what if he goes around the same?
Yeah, if he needs to be there or cheaper, because with the lack of track record, there's just so much can go wrong. And if things go wrong for Bailey Ober because of that huge fly ball rate, it will go really, really wrong. Yeah, exactly. He will be the Ian Anderson of this, of this year, where he's not in the majors and you have to cut him. So
I agree.
I think there's potential, but I also, like I said, I need to see him finish the year on the mound.
Yeah, and so we'll see Bailey Ober again working on his rehab stints. Should get another one here relatively soon. Hang on, I think he fired this weekend, so he'll be on the bump this weekend. In I don't know which level though. I'm sorry. He pitched in A ball these last 3 and 4 innings. So you might need another 2 outings in the minors for Bailey Ober, which means he might only get an outing or 2. If they make the playoffs, then he can pitch there and he could be instrumental for them because Molly is cooked, which really sucks because that was such a great pickup for them. And he's been cooked. Bailey Ober could be that replacement and give them somebody to go to in October, should they make it. 2 more guys. Yusei Kikuchi. I mean, people have been buying in on this. It has never worked. So rebuy implies a previous level of achievement, but he was an all-star last year. He had a 4.41 ERA, 132 WHIP. His proponents are mad that I'm saying any sort of cross word about him, but I mean, he's a 5.05 career ERA with a 143 WHIP. I do get it. I'm not going to say I don't get it with Kikuchi. I understand why people keep falling for him. But at a certain point, you got to stop. And I think this would be this year, right? There's no shot that you're buying back in on Kikuchi after this year, right?
Remember when he was coming over to the States and everybody kept using the Tanaka comparison? Everybody else kept going, it's a lazy comparison. They're both Japanese pitchers, right?
True.
I'm going to give you the unlaziest comp for him. He is the pitcher version of Maikel Franco.
Oh my God.
A guy who
I love where that's going.
A guy who just balls out in spring training and makes everybody excited. And some people are over, there are a few people over in the corner going, "Don't do it. It's a ploy.
Stop.
He's tricking you."
He throws 95 or 99 every spring.
And I'm right here going, I don't even care about the velocity. Look at the movement.
Look at the secondary stuff. Yeah.
Oh, look at.
And I get it. Like, it is easy to fall for Kikuchi in spring when the velo's cooking, the secondary stuff looks good. But fool me 94,000 times. Shame on you. Like,
I'm absolutely done. He was and I wasn't even in this year, but he was atrocious. Like,
unbelievably bad. 2.1 homer 9. Yeah, 2.1 for Kikuchi.
Yeah, no, and a 5.48 walks per 9. Like, I just no.
Would you even take Kikuchi pick 440 in a draft and hold? Would you do it?
I think I needed to be a little. I would take him in a draft and hold only because I think there's guaranteed innings there.
Yeah,
and, and like I'm in like 2 or 3 of my draft and holds this year. Literally, I'm rolling with 9 pitchers. Like, I don't have a choice on who I get to start.
You just have your 9.
I just have the 9 that are healthy. Like, in the majors.
To give you an idea of 440 this past year, you're talking Rich Hill, Madison Bumgarner, Miles Michaelis, Roansy Contreras, Dylan Bundy.
I think that's where he belongs.
I was going to say, I don't think it's out of pocket that Kikuchi goes in that range, which I could get on board around there, but that's it. No other, like, draft champions is the only consideration I have for Kikuchi right now.
Yeah.
All right. Then we'll end it with a guy I hinted at earlier, Mitch Keller. Again, rebuy, he hasn't necessarily achieved a particular level, so we were being a little loose with some of these definitions, but premium prospect who people got excited about this year based on the velo jump. The velo has held. He's added 1.6 for the year, 94.1 to 95.7. It's netted some results. He was better this year than he was last year, but that's only because he had a 6.17 ERA, 179 whip last year. How could he get worse? He only improved his strikeout minus walk rate by 2 points, Justin. The real improvement came in a 60-point BABIP drop, cutting his hits per 9 from 11.7 to 9.7, which is still bad, by the way. So Mitch Keller has only shown faint improvements. Is it enough to get you back in? He will be dirt cheap too, regardless of how he finishes. He was 482 last year in draft champions. I think he'll be a bit higher than that, but I think like 350 would still be the high end for Mitch Keller. Would you buy there as a pick 350 for Mitch Keller? He'll be 27 next year, which means he'll have a perfect season.
Yeah, I'm totally in on this one. Like, I will Charlie Brown, Mitch Keller, all the way
at least a couple more years, right? Yeah.
Since July 11th, and that's his last 10 starts. He has a 2.83 ERA. Has pitched 54 innings, got 43 strikeouts in that time, and he a 130 whip. So the whip kind of sucks still, but the rest is really, really good.
Something's working there.
Yeah.
And it's a couple bad starts. Sorry, it's a couple bad starts pushing the whip. It's Boston and Atlanta too. 2 starts that you should have easily avoided. Like, that's not revisionist to say that Mitch Keller, you're streaming him, you should have absolutely avoided those starts. Now, you would have also missed 6 innings of 1 unearned run in Colorado if you were streaming him.
And probably this last 6 inning start against the Mets. So,
yes, but even if you take out all 4 of those, there's still some good work there, and that's your whole point. And the ones that you would have skipped still count. The Mets one still counts, even though you wouldn't have gotten it on your fantasy team in terms of him showing some growth. So Keller, pick 300 next year, you take him.
Yeah, I think so, because he's not a guy you have to start every game.
No, like, he's an upside lottery ticket.
And I still think that upside is there. Like, I'm not out on him completely. And he's been durable, which is one of the big issues we had with him coming out of the minors. Is like, can he stay healthy? Because he had so many like back issues.
Yeah, and he has shown health here and made 2 pretty foolish seasons. Pick 300-ish this year. Josiah Gray, Carlos Carrasco coming off of health. Andrew Heaney, Luis Patino, Tyler McGill. This makes sense. This is the range Keller will be in the 280 to 320 type range. I'll buy back in too because you love the velo jump. He is taking steps forward. You can see how it's coming together. And we're still only talking about 300 innings for him. He just eclipsed 300 innings as a major leaguer. He has 300 and a third for Mitch Keller. So I think there's plenty of reasons to rebuy, chief among them being that the price simply won't be too expensive. So
and we don't have to, like, even when he struggles, like Pittsburgh still is not going to have a good rotation next year. So like he's going to be in the top of that rotation, no matter
unless
what.
Unless he falls apart with like an 8 ERA through 15 starts. Like
even that. I mean, how long have they pricked Bryce Wilson? Like, it's just like
I think an 8 ERA would get him kicked out.
Maybe.
But your point is well taken. Like he could have a mid fives into Memorial Day, and I think they're still sticking with him because why would you not just let him figure it out on the major league level? So that's Mitch Keller. And there's our pitcher rebuys: Trevor Rogers, Freddy Peralta, Lucas Giolito, Michael Kopech, José Berríos, Ian Anderson, Tanner Houck, Aaron Ashby, Sean Manaea, Bailey Ober, Yusei Kikuchi, Mitch Keller. Mixed bag there. Plenty of guys to get. And Justin, we're going to have to start making these decisions pretty soon because we're psychopaths, you and I. We're going to be in drafts like next month.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to be in one like tomorrow or something.
I'm working on ranks right now.
I just started my SP ranks because I'm going to put out a top 25 SPs for next year type of deal.
Yeah. So and are you going to do one of the FPAS drafts?
Oh, absolutely. I'm insane for.
I'm going to try to miss it. I'm going to
have to get my fix. I'll miss you if you don't do it. I'm going to convince you to do it. I will ruin your life.
It depends on if I'm going to have a cap on my leagues.
I was just going to say, you have to try to get it to not count.
Yeah.
In your cap because it's a draft and hold.
Yeah.
And you're drafting while you're there. So you're not taking time out of the family. She's going, isn't she? So it's, the whole point is
and it's not like capping my leagues helped me. Like I still had a bad year. Like if anything, maybe it hurt me. I've had such good years.
Let's hear you spin this one. How did it hurt you?
I just wasn't as in tune as I could have been.
Because you didn't have enough teams to stay on top of everything.
Yeah, and it hurt.
You only had 17 leagues. So this is Danielle's fault.
Yeah, I
like what you've done here.
One of the things I've already talked to you about, and I guess I'll say on air. I think I'm still going to play in a lot of high stakes leagues. I'm not like leaving high stakes, but I think I'm going to start playing in more regular people leagues, the Yahoos, the ESPNs, because there's so many people who listen to our content and read our content that they don't play in NFBC. They play in ESPN and Yahoo. And so I think especially through the Patreon and the Discord, I'm going to put together some ESPN's point leagues and Yahoo point leagues or category head-to-head categories and things like that. And I'm going to play a bunch of different formats this year and play a little bit less NFBC and play more just kind of 10 teamers, 12 teamers to really, I think, hone my content.
So you're really in on everything because we try to reference, ESPN this, Yahoo that, but I only play one Yahoo league. I don't think one ESPN. I don't think you play at either avenue. So we're not.
I play on ESPN, but it's a deeper ESPN.
Yeah, and neither of us play Yahoo. So like we're not fully in tune with what they got going on with like their ADP. And who does a great job of this is in this league when they do their ranking coverage at each site, and they will give you tips on like at Yahoo this guy's ranked 90th, at ESPN he's 55th, so you can get a major discount. They do stuff like that, and that's excellent. So we can get a wider berth of coverage ourselves. I have that head-to-head league because I want to be engaged in head-to-head points. So I'm with you. I think that's a great call to diversify our league portfolio a bit more. So that way we're talking about everything and we're experiencing it too. That's why I'm always deferring to you on dynasty leagues. I play in one and I'm not like uber intense in it, but you have a lot of dynasty where you play some of the coolest, most unique leagues out there. So I think that's a great idea. And I can honestly, while I am sad that the season is close to ending, I do love off-season stuff. So I'm kind of getting amped up.
I got a lot of stuff planned for the off season. So.
Same, and I just got my email about writing for the HQ forecaster again, so I'm very excited about that. But anyway, Justin, you got to get to work. Let's go have a nice weekend. What are you up to this weekend? You and Jason gonna be talking?
I hope so. We weren't able to connect this last weekend. I'll send him a text and find out. So hopefully we'll get back on the horse.
Well, I hope you have a great weekend. Stay cool. I know it's exceptionally hot out there in your neck of the woods.
It's been 115, but I think today's supposed to be the last hot day for a little while, so that'll be nice.
Yeah, we get triple digits for like 6 months at a time, but I know when you're not used to it, it's quite a big deal. And the Bay Area has been getting hammered by sweltering heat.
It was so crazy. I walked outside yesterday, and yesterday's high was 105. I was like, "Oh, this isn't that bad." And I look at the temperature gauge. I was like, "Oh, I've just gotten used to 115
exactly,
for the last
dude.
5 or 6 days."
Exactly.
Where 105 doesn't feel like nothing.
105 feels like a cool down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, anyway, stay out of that sun. It's sweltering, and you and I will talk on Tuesday.
Take it easy.